Wait.
From my heart
The blue
to
is
my
just like
heart.
transits?
The blue is just, those are where I have, like, my
Electromagnetic.
hanging.
Oh,
Yeah, I was
gotcha.
looking at, you can look it up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. I got
No, so
confused.
yeah, I was like looking at what other ones were like
Right.
the ones to look out for in other people and stuff. So 6124.
Individual. Perfect. Okay, this one.
Thank you.
What is yours?
I have 2 individual, 1 tribal, and 1 collective.
I think
Oh,
But
we're
on
talking
the
about the
gate.
tribal, the individual, what's the other one?
Is it the projectors that are like 20% and the reflectors that are 2?
Yep.
I always get those confused. Those are the ones
They
I
do
don't
have
know
some
much
red
about. It's
lights.
easier to know generators because everybody's one and manifestors. So that's hard. I always get them confused. So, and you're a projector.
Mhm.
Oh, cool.
Our only one here.
Oh yeah.
You're my first real manifestor.
And our only 6th line, right?
Oh.
She has a friend who's a manifestor, but I don't know her that well, so I'm happy to meet you.
My first real
Six
manifestor.
lines that you care about circuitry?
Oh, that's a good joke. He just lines one sees the whole circuit. The 5th line just sees across the channel.
Right. I think 4th and 5th lines are kind of ambidextrous, whereas I feel like I have a really hard time with gates. I have to reach too far to understand a single gate.
All right, Mike. Can I have you write yours down?
You understand the channels
All
better than the
right,
gates?
welcome everybody.
I think I do so far. Yeah, I don't know.
And you guys are you new to it or do you know
Yeah.
about it?
Yeah, we're pretty
It's been
new.
a few months, maybe.
Yeah. Since like May, June.
Yeah. I think it was around then.
Yeah.
In May.
Yeah. But pretty
Still
into it
learning.
so far.
Yes.
Yeah, I just finished an audiobook today, so I need to dump the gigantic raw file. I'm ready. I'm freed up.
Thank you.
What's your basis for the tribal individual?
What's the basis for them?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll probably find out during this lecture.
Yeah.
Cool.
The-
Yeah.
I've never heard anybody use those terms for channels before. So, what made you say that? Is because it's which?
Ra introduced circuitry. I mean, he formalized it in 1999.
Oh, wow.
And
Pretty
Channels
late.
by Type, where he really formalizes type also. He was working on it long before then. I mean, he was working on it even when he was in Taos in the mid-90s and some of that time. But they're his keynotes, so they're his terms. I mean, like
Wait, this is
everything,
you?
there's a real poetry
Is that-
that,
What?
you
CG?
know, it's,
That's me,
some
yeah.
people are going to really
I think I messed
appreciate.
up.
I mostly appreciate the keynotes. Some of them are. I like
yeah,
they're kind of like
952. I'm
mysterious
just going back and
sometimes. You have
writing
to unlock
like what
why
they are.
this or that keynote. For instance, the.
This or that? Oh my God, that's
Oh,
all he ever says.
Well, I didn't even
That's
say that.
crazy.
I'm not saying that in that way. I'm just saying, in the keynote of, well, geez, I'm not saying like I think that's a very common saying. No, but for instance, collective is split between the logic and the abstract, and you might go, why is the abstract? We'll get to it. I mean, you don't
These
have
are
to,
circuitry terms.
Collective,
tribal,
yeah. I
and
mean,
individual.
you'll get to that. I don't want to upstage Jenny. She's been working really hard on this, so it's
I'm
not
sorry.
polite to talk about that.
Yeah,
the
that's
topic
that
before
is-
before it
that
starts.
is-
So I'm just
yeah,
gonna-
that's the topic. The topic
Yeah.
is all about circuitry.
Yeah. So.
And what is so fascinating is like, when I first got into human design, this wasn't at the forefront. I mean, same for you. And after learning about it, it's really a cool way of understanding like the organization, like a way of being able to identify these smaller systems within the bigger system. Like, for example, you have the tribal channel of 4521, and that's what gives you that ego manifestor energy. It's the throat to the ego. So that's tribal. So tribal is going to feel a lot different than collective, and that's going to feel a lot different than individual. I mean, you already can take away so much meaning from the words themselves. Tribal, community, family, small group of people that are really like tight. Collective, everyone. Individual, just you. The other thing that we're going to talk about today is integration channels, and it's important to recognize that these aren't actually, it's not a circuit. They're just channels that come together that are really unique, and we're
we still call it integration circuitry, though. I mean, Rod calls it that. He just says
He
it's not a
does?
circuit. Well, it's just not a circuit on the level.
It doesn't have a terminal point. Everything else seeks the throat, but those ones
Oh,
don't necessarily.
what? Not 20? That's part of.
I don't
Well,
Oh,
I
because
mean-
it's centering. No, but the centering is the individual part. We'll we'll get to that.
yeah.
We'll get to
like-
that later.
like
But just so
the-
people know what we're talking about, the integration bundle. It's called the integration bundle. It's that weird 6 channels that connect between 3 gates.
4 gates.
4 gates, I mean. 6 channels between 4 gates. Yeah, and it's connecting, 4 centers too. 1 gate in each center.
Well, actually, that was the first thing we were going to talk about.
Oh.
was just like discerning like that, because it's so interesting in at least in this book, the circuitry book. It talks about how the integration channels, which those channels are in different circuits, they're the foundation of our biodiversity, representing the evolutionary force that separates us from the mammalian past. They are the channels that formed as humans first began to walk upright, and thus they represent our transition from being a mammal into being Homo erectus. And so I thought that was really interesting, especially right now we're in a transit of 2034, and at least when I think of people who have the integration circuitry like yourself, it's like I just think busy. I think running around, going from place to place.
That's the main manifesting generator channel, right?
Correct. Yeah, main manifesting generator channel. Yep.
Wait, we're in a transit? Something's going on up there? Situation?
Totally.
It's the nodes. It only happens once every 9 years. There's about a 3-month period where the nodes will be in 2034, because actually 2034 is an opposition on the wheel, meaning if you look at how activation occurs, right, certain channels, only 3 of them in fact, will be opposite. They'll have opposite gates on the wheel, which means anytime the sun goes into one, the earth goes into the other. Anytime the earth goes into one, the sun's in the other.
Yeah.
Anytime the north node goes into one, the south node's in the other. Anytime the south node's in one, the north node's in the other.
So we're
So-
guaranteed 24 days of births of those each year, because there'll be 6 days where the sun is there, and then when the sun is there in the other time, and then there'll be those babies that are born 88 degrees after that who have that unconsciously active.
Right, we don't necessarily feel that though. We're only going to experience, like, it's funny, like we consciously experience the transits of 2034 being a very busy time. I mean, here's what's funny, if you have 2034, it's like, I don't notice a difference. Like, it doesn't, everyone always asks me what it means when you have something already, and I kind of say, well, unlike astrology where you look at the conjunction as some big profound thing, in human design it's typically actually that's not causing any activation. And 2034 is equipped for it. It's like, welcome to my world. I'm like this all the time. You guys just got here, So, I mean, you might not necessarily feel like you've been moving any faster at all. You're like, I'm just moving.
A lot of
I just call it
projectors
moving.
recently have been talking about the last few weeks feeling really overwhelming because they're not used to having
Yeah.
that.
Right, because there are
sacral
no
energy.
projectors who have a 2034. I mean, obviously, because that's a sacral channel. So, yeah, when a sacral channel comes along, and there's no manifestors either that have a 2034, and there's no reflectors, obviously, with a 2034.
Yeah,
So,
have you felt a certain difference in energy the last couple weeks?
of being busy.
Of being busy?
In particular. Doing things a lot, getting a lot
I'm more
done.
frustrated with other people who can't be that way.
Right, but as a manifestor, it'd be interesting if you, I mean, I don't know if you felt any, if you noticed any of those transits. I mean, for the manifestors, it's typically, for Ra, he would say that when he had his undefined sacral, and he had one there where he activated his root and his sacral for like 3 years of Pluto. And he just said, he really got to learn that no matter how much deconditioning he did, that those undefined centers will just keep going and going and going, you know, like the not knowing when enough is enough. Now it could be that you're, you know, you've deconditioned enough and or you're like lucky enough to not be exposed to that. But I know a lot of people are just, you know, go right now, and it's just such a thing, you know. It's not necessarily in a hurry as much as it's just the amount of things it's trying to get done. You know, 3420 is all about, and it's all about not procrastinating, just doing one after the next after the next. Here's your integration book.
So who else has it? Do you have an integration channel?
No, I don't. But I dated someone who had it, and I wish I knew human design when we dated, because I was just like so frustrated with how much he was
That's
on
not
the
the
go.
only one though, is it?
No, the full integration is this one too.
Which actually makes 6 channels.
Oh, that's what you were saying.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
The
I
integration
missed
channel
the
is that
memo
whole
there.
set of them.
That whole set of them,
Okay.
and there's 6. It goes from
Yeah.
10. Well, it's not these. It just starts at
Okay.
20 to 10, 20 to 34. So and then 20 to 57, 34 to 10, 34 to 57, 10 to 57, and those are the 6. So there's really 6 of them total. So, you know, for instance, you have an open integration bundle, but like me, for the most part, I have 34 there is the only one I have. But you're pretty much open there, which would mean that, you know, you might be noticing even more after this, because it's going for the next 2 months. You might notice the push to do more. You know, it's always
I mean,
good
it
to ask
suddenly
yourself.
clicked into gear in me, but not a few weeks ago. It's much more recently.
Okay, well, I mean, it was
Last week, I kind of realized, like, holy shit, I want to get out of here. I gotta do all these things.
Yeah, like
well, it
I
builds
gotta
up. I mean,
go
it's
talk
it's
to
a
this
3
person,
month.
and I gotta like
Yeah.
You can think
arrange
of it as sort of
things
a
here.
3-month prana, where it'll sort of go through the lines, and also it eases in. You know, unlike most transits, which go from the first line, the nodal transits always retrograde, so they always start at the 6th line and go backwards. So, for instance, we just entered into the 5th line. So that's what it was. The first 3 weeks, it was in the 6th line, which just means it's just a very like
Busy
real.
contemplating.
Well, it was busy thinking about or contemplating, or also just kind of. I won't even say it's that busy. The 6th lines are kind of the ones that have been there, done that about each gate. So it was a little bit like, do we really have to do it? Are we going to have to be busy now? Do we really want to be busy? Then I got to the 5th line. It was like, wait, it's a crisis. We got to do it now.
Oh my,
geez.
now you just described
Because
that,
the
I
5th
can
line is
relate
the
in
line
my
of
own life
crisis.
to that
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh yeah,
as
the
being
5th
my
line is
reason.
absolute line of crisis. And yeah, I kind of should actually remind myself, because it didn't really feel that busy for me September 1st or whenever it was. I don't remember. Was it the 7th? Or
The
I don't
1st,
remember. The
yeah.
1st? Okay. Yeah, it didn't really feel like it right when the nodes changed, other than you feel the old nodes go away. And that's something interesting, by the way, too. You can really notice when the nodes change. They're kind of the bigger ones. If you have the ability to, you know, be in a cafe or something when it's happening and just notice it. It's such an interesting thing. I'm serious. It's such an interesting thing to notice. You know,
Well,
'cause it
yeah,
does
it's
actually
interesting
shift.
when transits shift in general. Like right before this meetup at like 6:20, the sun shifted into the first line of gate 46.
Oh, we got out of our 6th line day.
Or yeah, we got out of the 6th line day into the first line
Oh,
day, which is
geez.
investigative, talking about things, getting to the bottom of what integration channels mean.
And it's my gate. It's my birthday. It's my
Yeah.
birthday gate.
So some other notes I have here is, so since it wants to ensure survival, selfishness is good for their genes. So there is a self-centeredness that's just like, you know, kind of baked in to the integration channels. The keynoting, which would be to like, you know, take each gate and kind of string them together, would be like gate 10. I'm just going to say the whole thing and then I'll divide it up. I love myself and empower myself by listening to my intuition in the now. So that I love myself is gate 10. I empower myself, 34, by listening to my intuition, which is 56.
57.
Oh yeah, 57. I just said the wrong
Yeah.
one. In the now, 20.
Yeah, there's the whole, I mean, you can even just keynote, that's a really nice way of doing it, because the 10 is actually, and I want to hear Mike, I mean, Mike has some great observations on gate 10, but there's also just a very simple keynoting laid out in channels by type of just 34 is all about doing, that it's really the power to do. It powers 3 channels, so it's the most powerful sacral gate. It and the 14 are the 2 most powerful sacral gates, I would say, and they're in the same interesting Godhead. They're in that Hades Godhead we've been talking about, also with 43, which is a really fun one. But anyway, that 34, which is about power, gate of power, right? And you see the different keynotes of the channels coming out of it, like power skills and stuff like that. And it has some interesting lines too. I mean, I have 34-3. It's not the best, not the easiest line always, but it's really just about doing. It's having the energy to do it. It's like, let's do it. It's having the energy to do. And when you think of like what doing really is, my 34 on its own is not the energy to do it now. I don't have 20. When 20 comes along, I actually get a lot done. Because I have all the energy in the world to do it. You want to build that wall? You want to lift those rocks? You want to move that stuff? Oh yeah, we always get stuff done together.
I know that story.
I always joke and call it. I mean, yeah. So it's nice to have that with people. But that 34 is just plain old doing, and then 20 is like the now of existential insect buzz. It's like the bzzz. It's like that's the funny thing. I always like to think of Eckhart Tolle, Power of Now, as like the insect thing, because insects love to be in the now because that's all they have. They're just like water. I see a water. Oh, there's a water. Oh, there's a water. They don't have a memory. You know what I mean? They're just, oh, I like the water. Okay. Oh, there's that's what they're doing. That's all gate 20 is. It doesn't have memory. It doesn't have anything. It literally is so fully present in the now. That's why 3420s can be. I know a 3420. He's like a stunt. He is a stunt driver. He's done stunt driving. Really amazing reflexes. Just 3420. No other. It doesn't have 57. Doesn't have 10. You would think 57, you'd have to have 57, some intuitive awareness. Well, 57, the keynote is knowing. And it is possible to be really good at driving a stunt car in the now and not know anything about it. You know what I mean? Like the pure survival of 3420. Yeah. But sorry, did you want to? I want to hear what Mike had to say about 10. He really does a great 10.
Can you repeat that keynote again?
20 is just now, and then 34 is doing.
The whole thing.
Oh yeah. Oh, yours. Yeah.
Yeah. I love myself. 10. And empower myself by doing. 34. By listening to my inner knowing. 57. In the now. 20. And I merged them together.
Yeah. And that's great for someone who has all of those. I mean, I can't trust my inner knowing in the now because I have a conditioned inner knowing in the now in a sense. In some sense.
It's just like a really powerful one, and really cool that it has this, self-centered survival mentality, but it can have all sorts of different flavors. Like, it can be someone who has innocence and they have that, channel, like they're really motivated, but it's kind of this, dough in the headlights flavor to it. But I think it's a good transition into talking about individuals. So, like, as a quick, just what the individuals are interested in themselves. Collective people are interested in humanity as a whole, and tribal people are interested in family and immediate community. And then there are senses that are attached to each one's too. Like the individuals are acoustic, collective is visual, and tribal is tactile.
And also smell. It depends on the circuitry, but touch is the primary one. You're right. Tactile touch. Yeah.
And smell?
I would say smell is a secondary sense for tribal.
Yeah, I actually think so too.
So
It's
anybody
44
who
degrees,
has
yeah.
a
Smell like
channel
the other
to be
person
described as one
part of the
those
other,
things is-
right?
I mean,
just that will
Yeah.
feed each of these.
the way
You!
So-
Like I have,
How do you know
I have
which
those
one
two,
is
or just that I
tribal
have
or
all three.
whatever?
So then that would
So
be,
I will
that
show
would describe me.
they have a list or
what
something.
the circuits are.
Or
Yeah.
at least as far as that.
Okay, so
Could
Yeah,
you explain
well, we
first
all
the
obviously
channels
use
as
our
obligations thing, or what it means when you...
what?
But it's like
Could you
your
describe
sense of
first,
smell, what in
she's
particular
asking what
bring out
channels,
this-
what it means when you have
what
multiple
this
channels,
particular
multiple kinds of circuitry.
Oh, okay.
Could you kind of maybe just describe like the obligation of what it means to have integration, like you're obligated to survive? If you have integration circuitry, you have
As
to
legal authority,
survive at all
manufacturer,
costs.
and then
You just
that
can't
is my
let yourself sacrifice yourself for
it
somebody
helps
else
the
or something.
functioning, especially
right?
because
It's
it's
a great way
unconscious
to-
That's
on
why-
the body side.
No,
That's
or
my sense, and then that
individual.
Well,
is like the most important. Like,
Let's just pause for a minute and get everyone's attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's also
But you can do it with, I don't say, yeah, you can say that. Each
Well, if you
channel
want to
kind of-
say something, say
No,
it.
no, no. Just that each channel kind of adds, because we have the question kind of like, what do you mean we have multiple tribal
he
and
has the answer for
others? No, it's just that each channel adds another one on top of it. It adds a new.
So if
Requirement.
if you have multiple channels, then
You have multiple
and
requirements.
One's tribal and one's collective. Which one do you follow?
It's not a which, you just have to have multiple requirements. So it's like you get more and more and more limited for what's correct for you. So I always like to use Mike's chart as an example because he has the channel of the alpha. If he only had that channel, there would be like 10 million jobs he could be appropriate for. But then the second he has 2838, it eliminates 99.9% of those jobs. They don't want an alpha leader who's constantly struggling. But the right job is going to, because see, he has a requirement now that he has to struggle for purpose and meaning. And if it's not hard, and if it's not hard work, no, they want the alpha that has the 4426, the channel making money or something else, you know what I mean? So you see how each channel puts a limitation by imposing an additional requirement on you. You're not going to be happy if you're a survival person and if you're spending all your money on other people. You have a certain element of self-preservation. I don't have the survivalist self-preservation stuff in there. I have 34, that's it. But I don't have and also, by the way, 3420s who don't have 10, it's interesting. They can be, yes, they do need to be, selfish. It's healthy for them to be in some way, in some sense, you know what I mean? Like take care of their own needs first, take care of their own, take care of their own survival first. But actually they can be, I know so many 3420s who get so much wrapped up in other people's stuff because they don't have the 10 that's constantly pulling them back saying it has to be relevant to me. Instead, it's just like, I have endless energy to do now, so
what's
who
in
needs
front of
help
me?
moving
Yeah.
a couch? Like, let's just move all of my friends' couches now. And you just become like the couch moving friend who has just moved every single one of your friends' couches.
As a matter of fact.
I know 3420. But please, go ahead. I didn't mean to, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to derail it again.
Okay, cool. So, is there any other thoughts about integration?
I wanted to hear Mike's thoughts on 10 because he has a bunch of really interesting stuff about 10.
I don't know what you're referring to, but one thing that I've only gotten from clients consistently, but I've never actually read, is the thing that people of Gate 10 seem to have a basic background assumption of the validity of anything that exists, of life, right? So they go around, and also they're so enmeshed in that as an assumption that they kind of just assume everyone feels that way all the time. And when I bring this up to anyone with Gate 10, they always relate to it, which I think is
Yeah, I don't have Gate 10, and I don't believe in the innate value of all things or something.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to put into words sometimes. but
Earlier
it's
today,
something like
someone
that.
posted a picture of a rattlesnake, and then it was in this Everything New Mexico group, and that's like a base 10 thing, or a Gate 10 thing, where they're like, cool, a snake, like it has validity,
Yeah, totally,
it is real and valid. Other people were like, kill it,
Yeah,
and then people
yeah.
were like, don't kill it, and then there was a huge debate of whether you should kill it or not. But like,
It's the only gate that's a gate of mundane love and transcendent love. It's the only double duty love gate. Interesting.
that's a good point. Also because of its kind of dual role as individual and integration.
Oh yeah, because it does the
Right.
centering thing. Yeah.
Which is kind of what you're getting to with it. Maybe that's a good segue to the individual then.
Oh yeah, because there's two in the bundle that are technically individual gates, right?
Bundle.
Yes. Well, I mean, and that.
I didn't really know this until last week. I read it years ago, and it's like in one ear, out the other. So I just call it integration circuitry because to me, I still think of it as. But I guess it does make sense that there are these two gates out of the 6 that behave differently. Is kind of what you're saying, right? They're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, the reason why it's called circuitry is because they are a collection of channels that are connecting to each other throughout the body graph. And so with the individual, there's 2 circuits that are within it. And you can see that here. It's the knowing circuit and the centering circuit. And so they both are part of individual, which the keynote for individual is empowerment. So they're both empowering circuits, but they do so in different ways. So the knowing circuit has a lot more channels than the centering circuit. We only have 2 over here, and then we have 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 channels in the knowing circuit. And there are 3 gates that are a part of this that are like voices. So I am now, I know, I can, and I act.
I know I can. As was the second one? Was 12, you mean?
No, it was like I am now, 20.
Yeah.
I know, 23.
Oh, that's right. That's the knowing one. Yeah.
I can, 8, and I act, which is 12, according to this book.
Yeah, because it's a manifestor gate, and it's
Yeah,
a
I mean,
manifestor channel.
I've heard, like, didn't you say the other day that, like, 12 is also, like, I try?
Yeah, it's kind of knowing whether it's worth trying or not. It's similar to 8, and that 8's about knowing if it has the contribution or not. I mean, all of it, it's
Yeah.
called the knowing circuit. It's all about kind of like
Knowing, yeah.
Yeah, it's like knowing or not.
Yeah.
Whether you should try or not. Whether
Yeah,
you should,
totally. So, known in human design as individuals, people with defined channels in the knowing circuit are the agents of evolution itself. They are responsible for our direction as a species. Their role is to empower others by being an individual example of uniqueness. Through their uniqueness, they ensure the survival of the totality, like through the empowerment. So like they're kind of way showers, like just doing their thing, like, you know, an individual, like, you know, the 4323, you know, this really individual, unique voice that that is here to share their their uniqueness with everyone else, but in the same way, like they kind of like stay separate. Individual circuitry has an innate feeling of kind of feeling different than the rest, kind of like the outsider archetype.
Yeah, if someone only has individual circuitry, we'd call them a pure individual. That refers only also, by the way, to the channels, not the gates, because it's way more common to have, you know, all the circuitry represented in the gates. I mean, it's almost everybody has all the circuitry in the gates, but it's different when you have a channel. It really does refer just to the channels. The channel is the life force energy. The channel is what gives you your aura. The channel is what gives you your type. The channel is what makes you a manifestor. If you didn't have that channel, you wouldn't be a manifestor. So in some sense, the channel is your life force energy. It's the actual living, breathing prana of your life force field that's in the channel, not in the gates. The gates are dormant. They are characteristics and qualities, and they spring to life. Sometimes, you know, a gate hasn't really sprung to life for years, and people go, wow, it's been years since I laughed like that. It's been years since and it's because they really connected with somebody where that gate had a really strong electromagnetic, and who knows, it just took off and so on. But, and so I guess that's kind of the point. I guess I'm just saying that when you think about being an individual and you look at what individual circuitry is, there's like people who don't have any individual circuitry like me. I get to experience it through electromagnetics. I get to experience it through transits. I get to go to school in individuality. I get to feel it sometimes, but I don't know how to handle it. I'm not carrying this thing around with me going, you know what I mean? It's something that I will temporarily feel. It'll overcome me. Then there's people who have individual channels. As soon as you have one individual channel, you kind of have a lifetime of having this requirement being placed on you. Mike has an individual channel in addition to a lot else. But with that individual channel, it adds an additional requirement with that 2838. Yeah, do you have another? You also have the 6124. So both of those, this adds the requirement, so much about, that like you're saying, that Mike has to do something, unique to him to share his gifts. But it's also, individuality is the circuitry of melancholy, and melancholy is closely related to art. And here's someone who has an individual channel. Have a seat right there,
there's
please.
a mic right there.
Oh yeah, there we are. No worries. And here's a 8-1, an 8-1 individual right here. So
Not in the flesh.
Hi, how are
In the
you?
flesh, welcome. Let's hear it for Trevor. This is old-timer HD Catalyst, back from traveling abroad, or at least out to the coast.
Los Angeles is abroad, for sure.
Yeah.
So, do you think you could maybe like let us know what each of ours are, so we can kind
Yeah,
of be
that's
thinking
what-
about them as you're like.
Yeah,
going
that's what I was
through it?
actually
Okay.
coming over here to look at. Where did my pen go?
There's one right there. I don't know if that's.
I'll use it.
If anyone has Gate 25, I highly recommend taking one of these. These feel
Oh, I
great. They're
grabbed
so
one.
cool.
Thank you.
It's a Gate 25
Oh,
thing.
it's
It's the
right
love
here.
of inanimate objects. You know.
Okay,
Gate
so
25.
we also have to get your
Okay.
channels in on here.
I don't think I
What
have
Eight-
you
line.
have
4816, 81.
4816.
That's it.
And the 48's your personality son 48.6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's,
So the people who have an individual here, Christy has the 1214, which is the channel of the beat.
That's
the
one.
240.
Yeah, connecting
I'll
the
trade
G
you.
to the sacral. Amber has the 6124 up, connecting the head and the ajna. Sandy has the 81, and so does Trevor. And Mike has 6124 and 3828. I don't have any individual.
I have no idea.
What is it you're naming out?
24.
Oh, just what channels you have and who. Just basically everyone here except the two of us has at least one individual channel, which
Oh.
means all of you will naturally at some point in time just develop basically a melancholic sense, which is the need to turn inward during that time. And I mean, maybe you could talk a little bit about that, Trevor. If you, what does it feel like?
Just get used to it, and don't try to change it or turn it into something else. I think that when you can, like it's gonna. I mean, I'm a 6'3", so if you know about third line things, it's all about things are just not gonna work out, and so you can get all defeated about that, but that's just what it is. So if you have an individual channel, you're gonna experience melancholy, and instead of trying to like put a band-aid on that or escape it, maybe just feel it out.
Embrace it.
Yeah.
Individual.
So
Here's
any
integration.
any channel you complete
3457
yourself,
is
Yeah, I saw that.
integration.
in
Yeah,
general, will lead you to that
Well, yeah.
sort of alone melancholy.
Yeah, so like you have the
I have
8
several.
1, the 8 1, which is like, what can I contribute? What can I do? How can I express myself?
Knowing who you are and then having that self-expression you can share with others.
Yeah, exactly, the self-expression. So that's gonna kind of have waves of melancholy, or I don't know if waves is the appropriate word because it's kind of
Spikes usually.
Periods.
There's spikes.
Periods.
There's flashes. It's
Yeah,
on or off.
periods.
You just wake up. It's just there and it isn't. It just
Yeah.
goes away as quickly as it appeared. It's
There's no
poof.
particular reason, like when you
Yeah.
said mine 8-1, that you wouldn't say one of the others I have, or are we just talking
Oh,
about certain
because
areas?
well, this is the only
That's the
one
only
that you have
individual,
that's
yeah.
individual circuitry that belongs to that
Versus
circuit group.
collective or tribal.
Yeah, so that category
Yeah.
basically.
So
A1
of-
belongs to the
so
category
of
of
these
individuality.
ones- Yeah, of these
ones
that are lit up, you
Right,
only
right,
have
and you
one.
can see that the individual goes down the middle
Okay.
too, so it's like very highly symbolic that it really is like the real you.
Yeah.
Also, the individual goes to
Center.
all 9 centers. Collective only goes to 8, tribal only goes to 6.
So, so I would have to get that book.
Because
to
collective
really
doesn't
know
go
what
to
you're talking
ego.
about, like
and
as far
tribe
as
doesn't go to G center.
what
Hi-
makes
so-
them individual and.
Yeah, so like
You're
so
with me. Okay.
I can read a
Yeah.
little bit here
Yeah.
because
Okay.
this individual circuit is also about just mutating, like how we're saying, like having showing being a way shower of their own uniqueness to then inspire others, thus mutating others.
Or just like discovering
if you-
something,
if
like
you're
discovering
trying-
fire.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to like suppress your uniqueness, that's pretty a tragic situation. I would
Yeah,
say.
but also, I mean, it's a very sweet way to put it, but if you don't mind, we have enough time, right? I can talk a little bit about the individual. I don't want to derail, but I just want to say for a moment,
Yeah.
the individual being about creativity and about mutation, just because everyone has individual circuitry doesn't mean that mutation will ever come. Like, there's, like, nature kind of played a cruel joke of like making way more than it needed, to support it. It's like, it's kind of, it's in order to get those mutants and to really make those mutations, it has to kind of create a lot of fertile ground. And so what Ra kind of would, remind people is that doing your dishes can be a kind of creative act. Like, it doesn't have to be like, a lot of individual people get hung up on whether the creative act.
Right.
It's more about, it's like,
Or even your self-expression doesn't have to be to the masses. Right.
yeah, you don't have to make yours, it doesn't have to be, like, even as a projector, I think a lot of projectors can, like, it's nice to be recognized on a big screen, or a big
Well, at
audience.
some
It's also
point,
nice to be recognized by individual
Doesn't it
people.
get a little
who-
bit contrived if you just think like,
Yeah.
I want to help people, and you could just do what you're doing, and as you see opportunities, take them to help people, or you could like go out of your way. And I think that Ra wasn't really about going out of your way.
Well, he had only individual and integration circuitry. He had the 2551 individual, and then and he had the 4323 individual, and I think he was very empowering. I mean, I'm empowered by Ra's work, but I'm empowered as a byproduct of his work. And he did have, I think he really enjoyed playing music, and he loved doing some of the things where he could still feel the creative spark. But he did say that the first time in his life that he felt some sort of real sense of being defeated or something close to a depression, which he also said is very contrary for anyone who has integration circuitry. It's like you don't let yourself get depressed because you're just such a survivalist. You just have such a strong survival instinct. You just pick yourself up every time, or you know what I mean? I don't know if you've experienced that, but just this sort of like, even if you have the sort of depression signatures of the format gates and so on, you're still kind of as a survivalist. Like for him anyway, he was just like, screw that, I was going to the next thing.
And
Yeah.
not like being told what to do.
Well, right. And so, Ra kind of was living his individual integration, survivalist, freak life, and then he had his encounter with the voice that led to the human design system. And afterwards he had his first defeatist feeling, because that feeling was the worst feeling an individual could ever have, which is, it'll never happen again. My entire life, I'm just a collective shill. I'm just a tribal support salesperson. I'm just, my entire life now, I just have to live in the shadow of this one spark of something actually happening. Because that's all the individual wants, is something to happen. Please let something happen. Let there be an apocalypse, because that would be more exciting than just nothing changing.
So you have these epiphanies. Something happens, but it doesn't really change much, just because it's a moment,
We were talking about gate 20 just earlier. That's always in the moment. I mean, gate 20, it's kind of permanently in the moment. But anyway, I'll let you get back to your thing. I just wanted to kind of talk about the other
that's
side of
great.
individual, the melancholy, and then the
Yeah,
creative.
it's totally great.
The creative
And
side
because
being
it's also like, I wrote notes, and I'm just going to read them. I'm not as eloquent.
You have gate 12. You can't convince me it's a gate of eloquence.
But marked by like alternating periods of order and chaos, and that connects with like the mutation aspect too, like 30s, 60s, definitely all about that back and forth between chaos into order, and something happens and chaos ensues, and then there's going to be times that they know and times that you just don't know, and you'll I mean, I don't know, I don't personally know what that feels like, but
I felt it. The conditioning is pretty strong from a defined head 4323 in particular. So I have a bunch of the examples. One of my favorite is just a really short one. So if anyone knows how Bitcoin works, just generally. So my friend who has 4323, Perry, he didn't know how it worked. Now, this is like the setup to a joke. If you have a 4323 who doesn't know something, or they know something, it doesn't matter which, if they're using those words, you just nod and you walk away, or you talk about something else, that's fine. Because there's only 3 deaf channels. They're all individual, right? Deaf channels, yeah, DEAF.
Yes.
And they are channels that literally, they are designed to be deaf because somebody has to be empowered in themselves. Don't worry, you don't have one. No.
I was just looking where they were.
Oh, they're in
Look 'em
they're
all
the
up.
4323, so they're that one, and then they're 2838, and then they're the 3955. You don't even have any gates in them. You're completely, your ears are wide open.
I'm not deaf.
Your ears are wide open to people. But no, this is what, Ra called them, because what he was saying was, and that they are, they are acoustic and they are linked to hearing, and that they literally will just not hear. And later they'll come to it on their own, and then they'll say, this is what it is, and you'll go, that's what I said, and they'll go, no, you didn't. They have no idea that you told them, because they were stuck in there, I don't know. So just picture yourself at a party, more and more people coming up being listed to explain how Bitcoin works to this guy who just doesn't know. And every time they would say it, and you would go, but I just don't know how that's any different from a normal bank. Or something, and you would just say, but I just don't know how that's actually anything new. But I just don't know how that's different. It seems like that's just the same thing. That's, and then they would try again, and it's never going to work. And I'm sure a few days later he was like, oh, that's the difference. But I've had that with all sorts of things. I've had a manifestor who didn't know what informing was, and was telling me in a reading, and this is why I don't like giving readings in person. I like to give, I was using examples like, say you're going to do construction on your house, maybe you tell your neighbors first, and it's like, yeah, but is that really informing, or is that really, I don't really know how that's different than what, Anyway, so. Yeah.
So I was wondering, with the individual circuitry, there's kind of like that, polarity or paradox or juxtaposition of, positively you have this defined channel, and then on the other side, we have melancholy. So for the tribal circuitry or the, is there like a other side of that? Yeah, in the collective, is there like a detriment?
There are definitely times they're vulnerable. The collective abstract is at its most vulnerable right after an experience, which we were just talking about right after our human design conference, that immediately following an experience, people who are experiential have a kind of need to digest and process and work through that experience and understand it and reflect on it and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And if they just rush into another experience, that can be really messy. And so that's kind of the equivalent on that side of it. For the logic, I think, I don't know if there's really a negative. There's, I'm logic. I have the logic format. I'm trying to think, it's not like it gets melancholic.
Obsessed?
It's not even.
No.
I guess
I'm just thinking about someone who's
I'm just thinking if it has, because I think part of,
like
I just don't know if it's really biphasic in the same way. Because part of the reason that you have the melancholy in the individual is because the individual is on a pulse, and it's so biphasic. And so the logic is just kind of always on and very pattern oriented, and then the abstract is very cyclical, and then tribal is of course ratcheting. We consider it building up and building up and building up. The 1949 is kind of the perfect example of the tribal, where we were just reading about that one, and it's so funny to see when people, who here has the 1949?
I don't think anyone does.
Well, maybe let's wait till we get to the tribal, we'll talk about that. I don't want to get too off course, but it's like a, I would say that its version of melancholy is after the ratchet falls. It's its version. So I guess the tribal and the collective's versions both have to do with the emotional wave, in some sense.
Wait, 1949?
Yeah. Well, Mike has it. Well, Mike, yeah, I was thinking Holmes has it. Were you just getting cold, Mike, or you gotta get going?
I got cold.
Okay, good. Just making sure you're not going, so we can talk about. We can talk when we get to it.
Okay, so I think we should move on to the next one, the next individual, which is the centering circuit, which is the 3410, and we talked about 34 a bit before, and then it's the 2551. So it's just these two channels. So starting with the 34 of doing, 10 is yourself. So like doing yourself, being yourself.
How to act or something.
Yeah, like how to behave as yourself.
Or not.
And then having, the courage to forge ahead, and just be yourself in the world. So I feel like it has a really inspiring energy to it. But what I have written down here is, the 3410 empowers others to follow their convictions, while the 2551 creates a deep sense of competitiveness in those who meet it. So it's not about changing the behaviors of others, it's about empowering others to love themselves and to follow their own unique path.
It's really funny too about 2551 and competitive. We'll have to do we should do a special thing on that one.
I think we had that, and then like the 59, 52, which is like the attention to details. They say that like Tiger Woods and Steph Curry, these athletes have that 952 going on.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
So like they'll have that, or like they'll have be around people that have that. You know,
Yeah.
the repetitive.
Yeah.
Over and over. You put that in the
Focus, laser
competitive, you
focus.
probably have like Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
But it's funny also because they don't experience themselves as being competitive. That's why you're saying it brings out the competitiveness in others, because it's like that's the
Oh, it, like,
conditioning of
turns
all
the
the
other
undefined
people
egos. All the
Yeah.
undefined-
I thought this was really interesting. So this is called the centering circuit, but to be centered is to respond to life. It's connected to the sacral, responding. So to be centered is to respond to life. Thus, it demands surrender to a future that cannot be known or planned. To love oneself does not require awareness.
I like
Oh yeah, because
that's really
57
good.
is not in there. That self-love is like a real thing.
Here's
It's
the
not
part
like
about the future planning again.
Yeah. Thus, it demands surrender to a future that cannot be known or planned.
That's so good.
I like that. That's nice.
If you
Yeah.
could do that, I mean, people would probably chill out.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah. Also, for those who are into variable,
Well, it's not connected to the
Trevor's
spleen at all.
quadrant.
It's not
Yeah.
connected to the spleen at
It's
all,
pointed
so it
out.
doesn't have any of
There's
those
no
fears.
fear or self-preservation
Yeah.
or
I mean,
it's kind of like the Zen channel.
Yeah.
when people come to you for readings, do you often find that what they really want is to like disidentify with their thoughts, and it seems to like come down to, you know, being okay how things are now without needing to change anything. And if you could do that, then you can basically take a deep breath and chill.
Yeah.
If you
peace.
can't, I mean, that's the ego signature, right? Not being okay in the present moment. And I mean, people like run themselves, like, I don't know, being open emotionally, open root, and all that sacred. So I'm around somebody, and they're just in their mind, and they literally can't be the awareness of what's going on with them, and it seems like hell.
Like
you
kind of
know?
trapped.
Yeah, and there's also the people who need to know everything is going to happen before it happens, and then tell you that that's not going to happen because logically they've worked it out and they know how the world works in all ways, so that couldn't happen. You know, it's like magic killers.
The anti-individuals.
Yeah.
The magic killers. So, yeah, I'm like, yeah, that sounds like pure logic people. Like, I can relate. I have a
No,
lot.
coincidentally, there's a 1-3. Makes sense.
So the keynoting for this one is to have the power to act according to one's nature and forge ahead with courage, and then challenges and defines the spirit of self. So the having the power, 34, to act according to one's nature, 10, and forge ahead with courage, which is 51, to define the spirit of self, 25. Yeah, I mean, this one's really cool. It's, you know, empowering others to love themselves, to be themselves.
So,
Which one's
didn't you say that the 25 was also the love of inanimate objects?
Yes.
So how do those two things, the spirit of the self and love of inanimate objects, go together? Because those seem kind of contrary to me.
Well, I mean, 25 is like the
It's
gate of
considered
spirits.
spiritual love. It's universal love, and so it's the love.
It's like loving
of,
someone as much as you can love a waterfall.
It's the. I mean, it's basically, if you think about it, so it's the gate of the spirit, and the spirit is not, in human design terms, is not really. I mean, the spirit can get the passion, but it's like the 51 has to provoke it, or the 39 has to provoke the other spirit gate, that 55. So like in human design, the two spirit gates are kind of both almost thought of as being provoked by the other side, by the motors on the other side. I mean, actually one of them is in the motor itself too, which of course has the biggest wave of all. The 3955 has the most extreme wave of all of the
It's the
emotions.
roots.
Dang.
Even more than 1222, right? But yeah, I guess to answer the question about like thinking like the spirit, like what it has to do with inanimate objects. I mean, I have that gate, and I think it's, for me, it's like seeing like God's creation, quote unquote. Not that I'm prescribed to any religion, but getting that sense of agape and that feeling of beauty of like, oh my God. And a lot of times it's at completely inanimate objects like a building or something,
Okay.
or like a little
Knick-knack or
carved
something.
thing, or like a
Yeah.
knick-knack, or like even just like taking
You got cool
apart.
stuff.
Like I'm like looking so much at how it's like built, and like nature is so incredible. Like it's seeing the spiritual beauty within nature and within everything. And Ra liked to joke and say, people confuse this love, and then he says, you know, it's the coldest love, and he says, yeah, I can love another person, but I also love the guitar and the sunrise. And they're all kind of on equal playing fields, right? Which led people to think he's a narcissist and all this stuff.
That's
but it's
great.
more just like he has 25. He just appreciates. He appreciates the inanimate as the containing the spiritual. There is a little bit of a, just like how Gate 54 has a really cool transcendent quote unquote line, is in the mundane. There is a little bit like how the transcendental it does have. So you're right, it is kind of funny. It's also, it just reminds me of a joke. I know you're trying to move on, but there's a little joke for people that get into Hegel and get into philosophy of spirit and onto all this stuff about spirit. There is a joke that they are materialists, and you know, people like the kind of probably the best contemporary Hegelian Slavoj Žižek, who's such a fun, hilarious thinker. I highly recommend that people check him out. He's so great. But he talks about this exact thing, and he actually quotes Hegel. Hegel made an inscrutable statement where he said, "The spirit is a bone." And nobody really knows what this weird, bizarre statement means, but he tried to understand it through the juxtaposition of the material and the spiritual and so on. And it's such an interesting topic. So I think all of that's in 25. Somewhere in 25 is all of this, you know, the spiritualism of the material. But it's still not yet worshiping the body, which is the 46.
I'm relating to that concept so much, and I don't have that at all. So that's interesting.
It's a fundamental aspect. Yeah, let me see what
A friend of
else
mine
is-
just said,
yeah.
like, because I'm an artist. Like, well, we're artists.
Sure.
We definitely
Yeah,
appreciate
right,
the inanimate.
and you have 51. You have 51,
So
so
is
you do
Kurt
have the
Cobain,
other
right?
side of it. And so anytime you have even half of that channel, you're going to experience it throughout your life, and you know you're either going to have transits that are going to happen there. If you're experiencing it from the other side, so you're getting to witness and feel it yourself. Obviously, when you're, I mean, we're all temporarily conditioned by. So, for instance, I have Gate 25. If we were watching this, you know, something happen, you would be getting my conditioning of 25 to make you even love objects even more. You might go home with a whole bunch of rocks and be like, I don't usually collect all these rocks. Why do I need these rocks? And then later you might be like, it's just a rock. I don't really love this rock any more than the rest of them. You know, until another 25 comes along. And then
No, but I
maybe-
have it on my own.
Oh, you just have the rocks?
I-
you
The love.
Yeah,
love
the
taking
the love
rocks?
of
Yeah.
inanimate things is definitely something I just relate
Yeah.
to.
Well, because the right rocks would have that gate occupied, the one that you're responding to. Right?
Oh, that's
because
what's
an
so
actual
funny.
inanimate object can have that one single gate.
Oh, that's
So-
the only gate of inanimate objects.
right.
That's what's so funny.
So you're
25.
connecting it
So
with
you're saying
everything.
that it's so I guess all
Oh.
51s
So-
also love inanimate objects too, we should say.
Yeah.
I mean, it is true. My
Because
mom
you're
has
able to
51.
connect into
She
it.
loves a lot of
It's
inanimate
electromagnetic
objects.
with things.
I mean, she definitely.
20, like, so every rock has gate 25? Am
I
understanding
guess
that
so.
right?
I mean, cells have we you know, no, I know it sounds weird, but single cell organisms still have a channel, and inanimate objects have a gate. Yeah, such a weird idea.
I have a question about that channel. Is it the only channel that can go both ways, from the heart to the G or the G to the heart? Because I think because with the centering circuit it takes that path, but then with the mystical way it goes from, and you talk about the provocation, that goes from the heart to the G. So are there any other channels that travel in two directions like that? 'Cause
Oh,
seems
that
pretty
go
peculiar.
backwards and the human mystical way? Because he's talking about the mystical way, which is not really, I mean, it's its own stream or something, you could
Right.
call it. Its own series. And it goes the backwards way that the centering circuit does. So that's funny that mystering.
Through that channel
that
only.
mys-
It goes the normal way through every other channel.
Yeah,
But
that's
that
a good
channel,
point.
yeah.
That's a mystery. That's such a mystery, the mystical way. I mean, it makes sense to me why the mystical way goes 51 to 25, because it's about leaving behind the tribe. Everything's been tribal up to that point,
Right,
in the whole mystical way. But in any case, that's different. We should do that one around like Halloween or some
Yeah, we should
mystical
definitely do
time
that
of year
one.
or something.
This direction of flow, is that always, or just in certain ways you look at it, or what?
Yeah, I mean, it's like
Like
it's,
of the circuit?
Yeah,
So?
do they really all always?
I
Yeah,
mean-
normally everything goes one direction, like
So
from
everything's-
towards the throat, basically.
Oh, I
Yeah,
didn't
those
know
are
this,
lines,
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know how valuable of a concept that is. Like, it is useful, but it's also like to have channels at different parts of the flow. I guess it's useful, particularly to know who can help power and energize you. So, for instance, Trevor has the 4816, which is right on that left side, right there, from the spleen to the throat. You have the 16 there. So he has this
Or
right
the
here,
understanding circuit.
but he is a projector, and he does not have any motors connected to that. And so what Ross said about that exact channel, because it's the creative channel of logic, and we'll get to this soon, but he said, no solo acts. You need to have somebody who has a motor, particularly a logic motor, connected to your spleen, particularly find some 1858s, people that you can work with, who will just, be in your band or in your
Jamie
your
has that
cadre.
1858.
There you go. There you go.
And it's very important. Like, I've left to my own devices, I'm useless. So, like, if I'm around other people, then all of a sudden I can be drawn from, and then I can give and also take. So that's very essential for me.
Yeah, as a quad right, also being so receptive, responsive.
Yeah, it really, honestly.
That's his variables. I don't know if you got the variable, but
It really-
all 4 of his variables are pointing right.
Oh yeah, I talked about that a little bit
Yeah.
on Saturday night.
So he's like very receptive.
I mean, understanding that just on this last little adventure I was on helped so much, just to know, like, I can't do anything about it. Just keep going and play harmony to the melody going on around you. That's what you're here to do. That's, it really
Oh, I like
makes
that.
the purpose of life a lot easier when
Play
that's all I have to
harmony
worry
to
about.
the melody around you.
Right.
That's sweet.
I mean, what better? 'Cause, if it's not the most technically, proficient musicians aren't necessarily the best ones. It's the ones who can, make whatever they're playing or whoever they're playing with, be beautiful. And you can just try to do that, but also that's like, not wanting to rock the boat at the same time, right? So it's a fine line.
Undefined soul plexus.
Playing, harmony, but also actually playing.
So are there just those 4 individual channels? How many of each of these flavors are there?
So there are 2 that are a part of the centering circuit, which is like the, just the
Oh, but
Being
these are
yourself.
all individual.
And then,
Okay,
and
there's a
then
lot.
Yeah, and
Okay,
then there was
there's a lot
9 over here. So next we're gonna move into collective.
Okay.
And collective is, if you're able to see these little pictures in this dimmer lighting. Pass it around. Yeah, pass it around. Or actually, if I flip it, you can see it on the farthest one over here and the farthest one over here. And so you'll see how it almost like a brain. It has like 2 hemispheres on either side of the body graph. And something I think is really cool about it is it like ribbons along this like center column. So which one will we talk about first? We'll talk about the understanding circuit first. That's right here. So it starts over here, and then it jumps over to the other side, and it continues going down the center on that side, and then from the sacral to the root, it jumps back over to the other side, and then comes up the very outer edge. And I just want to read like these the names of the channels, because it's going to really help inform what it's all about. The 63-4 is exploration. The 1762 is acceptance. The 31-7 is alpha. The 15-5 is rhythm. 9-52 is concentration. 58-18 judgment. And 48-16 wavelength. So with all those like words, exploration, acceptance, alpha, rhythm, concentration, judgment, wavelength, to me when I read them, I definitely kind of get that it's they're drier senses. Like it's the experimenting and thinking and leading part. It's the logical. This is the logical side of the collective. And the keynote to both the understanding circuit and sensing circuit is sharing. So sharing what you learn, sharing what what results you get from your experiments, sharing the story that you heard at the market that's going to be influential to help someone else. It's all about sharing the patterns that
Tips and tricks.
Yeah, tips and tricks. Yeah, totally. What did I write down? Oh, it's also forward-looking. It's focused in on the future, whereas the sensing circuit, on the other side, focuses on the past. So a forward-looking circuit projects its patterns into the future in order to lead. They want a natural sense of rhythm in their life.
What do you mean by that? Just like a routine?
Yeah, the logical
We're living somewhere where
collective is like looking for like that stability, the stability of rhythm,
right.
Like the 952. Like I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to wake up at 7 o'clock and have a routine.
Well, and also the 15 is so extreme in the love of extremes, even though it's in logic, because it's something funny to realize that logic experimentation, scientists, everybody, they it's in the G center. The 15 is pointing down at the sacral, and they do love the extremes, right? I mean, they love the extremes that happen in the experiments, but then the 5 is the one that's all about the fixed rhythms, and so it's interesting. Pardon?
What's gate 5?
5.
Yeah.
15, 5 are connect from the G center to the sacral, and it's interesting because like if you would do the dietary keynoting for someone and they have gate 5, you would tell them, wow, you probably eat on a fixed rhythm, or probably you just eat on a fixed cycle. You might anyway. That would kind of be the thing. But just like we were finding with the 51, who also loves the inanimate object of 25, there's an interesting effect of that whole channel, where I saw a 15 say, I love techno music because it's very 5. You know what I mean? It's very like repetitive, very fixed rhythm, like doom, 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 doom. And it helps, that fixed rhythm, that metronome rhythm helps to, for the 15, which is so chaotic and so extreme sometimes, possibly maybe just to have that familiarity. Why, are you laughing? Do you have 15? Is that a...
No, I'm looking at the full moon rising here.
Oh, geez.
Oh, wow.
No, I have 5.
Oh, you have 5. So
David
you are
has
the
the
fixed rhythm.
15.
Oh, he has the whole
5
thing.
too.
So he's on his own timing.
Yes.
Do you have a fixed? Do you have a fixed?
Well, I don't know. I'm a Taurus and a loner who does what they want.
So here's the little
that's why I like exploring this.
the keynoting here is this circuit is about being focused and concentrated. That's the format energy of the 952 channel. In order to understand the patterns of life, gate 5, once a pattern has been found, it has been tested through experimentation, gate 16, improved through correction, gate 18, resolved through depth, 48, and grounded through opinion, 47. Once the formula, gate 4, underlying the pattern has been verified, only then can it be seen as reliable and used to project into the future. Yeah, so really like testing patterns, improving and resolving, finding more out. It I don't know, feels very first line in that investigative sense, right?
It could be 3rd.
Oh yeah, 3rd, yeah, trial and error.
Yeah, because as a 3-5, I was like, this sounds a lot like me, but I only have the concentration one, but I have the 16, and I'm still tracing out all the other freaking numbers.
Yeah,
I don't know.
speaking of what we have, all of us have collective except for Amber. Christy has the 952, Sandy has the 6447, I have 4253 and 1858. Jonah has 4629 and 952. Mike has 731 and Trevor has 4816. Nice.
We're a very logical bunch.
Yeah, nice battery.
And the facts we're logical is also, you know, having a logical channel means having the continual ability to continually kind of process day in, day out in that logical way. Now, granted, if there's no motor attached, it kind of needs to be powered sometimes, but it's still there. In that case, it's a projected channel, right? We were talking about that, how that 4816, that's Logic's creative channel, and how Trevor has this incredible talent. I mean, it's the channel of talent, and yet it can be a source of anguish for a projector who doesn't have the motor energy connected from somebody else. So that's why, again, Rob was saying no solo acts, and you do work so well with people. It's true. You've worked with so many different people.
I'm here
It's
for.
come to life.
I mean, it was like Ross said that that projector with just looking. The world could be over if everyone's dead, and I'm with my TV looking there to plug in.
Still trying to plug in.
Trying to figure out where the party's at. It's all over.
Well, and with this one too, there's no direct motor to the throat, because it has to wait.
Of Logic?
Wait, what is it? It
'Cause
says
abstract has a direct motor.
it says. Well, I wrote down
Logic doesn't,
does
though.
not have direct access to energy.
That's Logic. Yeah,
Yeah.
Logic is starved for energy
Yeah.
because if you look at the solar plexus side, and I know it's getting a little. We have extra blankets. We wants to borrow one, but it's getting a little cold.
Does anyone
The solar plexus is a motor, so the solar plexus has all this energy, and it has that 36, 35 going up to the throat there, right? And so it has this direct access. It also has, even though it's individual circuitry, that 12, but still, it's like the solar plexus in general. You can think of as kind of the abstract side of things, which is interesting, right? In and of itself. But that just kind of shows us this sort of truism that there's always. Oh, don't worry about it. Didn't break. There's a truism that just there's always energy for a new experience. Somebody could say, we're going to climb to the top of this mountain, we're going to sit and say this mantra 1,000 times. Who wants to come with me? You get 100 people want to come with you. But if somebody says, we're going to sit and study this, they've had the experience of studying. It's an old experience. It's the same experience every time. The experience of studying never changes. It's always the experience of studying. You're just studying and studying and studying and studying. That's logic. Logic is where it's unfolding within that repetition of the pattern. Doing the piano lesson every single week or every single day. It doesn't matter if you're playing all new stuff. That doesn't count for an experiential person. Experiential people go, it's their personal hell having to do piano lessons. They want to play a different instrument every week. They want to go to a different city every week. They want
They'll
to
never get good at anything.
They're not interested. So it really is a divide. It's funny because you'll meet people who have one side of it and they always try to convince you they have the other. And I've met people who only have the experiential abstract, like our philosopher friend Christian, who thinks he's the most logical person in the world. But he's trying to explain to you how the sovereignty of the individual through the forthrightness of this or that, or he's using words that just don't even mean anything to most people. Because again, it's extremely relevant to his own personal experience that he's had.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting thing to see the experiential, which tries to be logical and is always trying to be logical. And then what you're saying, how the logical doesn't have any direct connection to the throat, it means it's always starved. Does anyone know? Here's a little HD trivia. There's only two fuels of logic. All logic is only fueled by two places. Anyone know the two logical fuels? Because there are, the sacral. I'll give you a hint.
Wait, what?
There's only two logical fuels of the logical process. There's only two fuels of the logical process.
58 and 52?
Yeah, exactly. Because the sacral is a motor, so it does have the logic of the 515 coming off of it. But it really is just the 952 that powers that up to the 515 and then up to the projected stuff above, the one you have. 31.
731, yeah.
731, yeah. Yeah, so that's one, and then it goes the other way, the one you have, so it goes from the 58 over. So really it's like, what that tells us is that logic, it's great when we have energy to do logic because it's rare, and that people who have 52 and 58,
to work with people.
Which are in opposition, the only two logic fuels are in opposition, so they're basically the same thing. It's basically, and I like to think of the opposition to two sides of the same gate, or two sides of the same. It's an interesting way to look at it too. So.
I don't have any of the logic, but I'm like, most people would say I'm like a logical person.
I have one and David has the other one. It's confusing.
Yeah, I mean, you do have the individual
You can be a logical person, but I love the Hegel quote where he said, "You cannot study gastroenterology to become better at digesting food, any more than you can study logic to become more logical."
Oh, I love
Right.
that.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's a great. No, it's true. It's true. I mean, it's like something in your DNA. It's in your life force energy.
Sure. It's applicable to all sorts of
Exactly, no
verticals.
connections to the throat.
But everybody has these potentials, of course, too,
Yeah.
through transits and activation.
Yeah, so yeah, when you said we're a logical bunch, we sure are. 64. Okay. So 64, 47, 42, 53, and 46, 29. That's Sandy, you, and me have the
For
other side,
experiential.
have the abstract.
You hear that quote says, "Mark the educated minds to be able to entertain thoughts without accepting them."
That's great.
Okay, so like on Reddit, if you're on like Reddit UFO or aliens or paranormal or psychic or anything, what you have is a bunch of logical quote unquote people like
Deep
not able to, entertain a thought and not accept the rest of it. Like, you could listen to some passage in the Bible or something from Buddha or whatever, like cherry pick your philosophy as a logical person. But these people who are like hyper logical, they're actually not logical at all because they're scared or something. Like they're afraid of like information that they would have to think about and like make their own conclusions on.
That kind of breaks their like illusion.
Yeah,
what-
so like
what
they
life
think they act
is.
like they're like married to the scientific method or something like that, and proof and sources and stuff. It's like you would never experience anything outside of that because these sources look past your own nose.
Well, it can also, that sounds more like tribal than anything.
Yeah.
Tribal is loyalty or else. Loyalty
Yeah.
to.
Loyalty to the science.
No, loyalty to
logical
your
tribe.
people. Loyalty to your tribe. Loyalty to your people.
Yeah. And I'm just saying
Yeah,
in
it's a
that
funny
sense, in the
place to
Reddit
Yeah.
sense, like, it's like
Yeah, there's
logical people kind of grouping together.
Yeah, but I don't know. I guess my point is like, how logical is that if you can't?
Yeah, a lot of
Well,
stuff
entertain
pretends to be
something.
logic that really isn't. It's very hard to find actual, like, it's so rare
Well, it's
to
also
find
unemotional. and-
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, I'm
Logic
not
is
getting
so-
swayed of some type of way because someone says something that might not be true.
Right.
Get
Yeah. It
upset
doesn't.
about
It
it.
doesn't have the connection to the experiential thing because, like, some of those things are more experiential. Is like the feeling, like, of not knowing, of having an encounter, or
Right.
like some people just don't have the capacity to.
Well, those things, right? And then also, it's that logic is deeply related
Sadly,
to
it's
caring
dismissed.
because caring is in the spleen, just as the abstract is related to sexuality, as sexuality is in the solar plexus. And you see that the logic circuitry goes through the spleen, so it's related to caring. And Ra loved to laugh at it because he would say these collective logic people, they care about everything. They care about literally everything that could possibly be cared about. And it's true, if you go on Wikipedia, there's somebody who cares about the naming convention of the most minute element of the most minute 60s TV talk show or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. Like, they just, like, it's the level of logic to care goes on forever because it's never finished, it's never perfect. It's that channel of perfectionism, that 5818, guess what? It's never perfect, never gets there. It just keeps going. That's what logic does. It just
Yeah.
tries to continue perfecting.
So does any of the logic go through the solar plexus then, or none of it?
None. So
No,
that's
there's-
the other.
that's the abstract,
The other one we'll talk about right
which
now.
is sexuality.
Okay.
And things like that.
So the sensing circuit is the other side. It's the abstract. It's the wet.
Okay.
So the wet and dry. Like logic's dry. Abstract's wet. The words that are the channels. The names of the channels are abstraction, curiosity, the prodigal, discovery, maturation, recognition, transitoriness. So like you can feel like how. Yeah, experiential, exploratory, feeling oriented it all is. And those channels, I can pass this around and you can see them for yourself, but like have that similar twisting motion and connect to the solar plexus. So like they're innately, connected to the deep experiential. I'm having trouble even finding the words.
But what the solar plexus
Yeah.
is about? Well, it's about the human experiential way,
Yeah.
right? That's the fundamental gate. There's a stream which goes from 41 to 30 to 36 to 35, which is all about what it is to be human, and just what it is to live life as us and to get the experience. It's kind of like the story of Parsifal. I mean, there's 100 versions of it. It's the hero's way. It's any of that. But it's that 41 is the root fuel of fantasy, which is, adrenaline fantasy. It's fantasy that says, I got to get out of here. I got to get over that hill. I got to see what's in the next town. I'm so sick of the same dumb thing all the time. And then it finally gets there and it meets gate 30 is the fates. People who have 41 and 30 are continually meeting the fates again and again and again. They fantasize about it, they build up the energy to do it that motivates them to do it. This is because it's a root fuel, of course. The root is what kind of fuels these different processes. Pushes us out there in the world. We get there and then we meet gate 30. And gate 30, it's like, who knows what's going to happen? I mean, gate 30 is where for people that have gate 30, they're kind of agents of the fate in some sense. I mean, they're almost good. It's just interesting. It's really interesting to see what happens. Raj's favorite joke about people who have that gate 30 particularly activated is going out for groceries and then you call home and say, hi honey, I'm not going to be home for 4 or 5 years. I'm going on the run. Something happened, it wasn't my fault.
Your abstract channel has that too. Your abstract channel can do that.
Yeah, exactly. I committed to it, and then I didn't, and I never came back until 5 years later. It's
about 5 years.
2946.
But you know what it's like to go out for a walk and be out for
Oh my God, 2946 is it's the same exactly.
Because you're daisy chaining little.
It's abstract circuitry that's all about committing to the experience, and when you commit to an experience, you don't know how long that experience is going to be. You don't know what's going to happen to that experience. People who have gate 30 and an undefined solar plexus often have a fear of intimacy, which was related to thinking if they're really truly intimate with somebody and close with somebody and let them see who they really are, they're just going to lose them in a car accident or some fate will just take the person away. And so they have this deep-seated fear of the fates, and they're always afraid, but if I really fall in love, you're going to go off to war or whatever it is. It's this classic trope of and the fear of the person, while they're away, while they're off. But anyway, and then it goes on to the 36, and that is the inexperience. It's almost like another version of that. It's inexperience, which leads to the crisis, or the actual. Well, it's the moment of gaining of the experience, and so they're always looking for the new experience, which can lead to a lot of crisis. It's related to sexuality as well, and so oftentimes it's like that: go forth and multiply. That's kind of the human experiential way. Go forth and see what's out there in the world. And then make more humans, and then from that. But it's purely experiential. It's not like the defense circuit, which are the people that end up raising the kids. If you don't have the defense circuit, then I hope you have friends who have the defense circuit, because they're going to help, raise the kids. But at least on the responsibility side, the 50-27, having the uncle or the grandma or someone who has the defense channels. But the experiential one is all about having the experience of going out there. The experiential is really all of the all of the experience and almost none of the repercussions. It's the tribal that has to pick up the slack and say.
So if I have both 36 and 30, then that means I go out on experience and I get slapped in the face by it all the time.
When it's activated.
Also.
That's one way to do it.
That's
You get to have a good crisis. You get to have the new crisis. Yeah. But and then it ultimately gets to the 35, and they're the ultimate been there, done that. Been there, done there. Sorry. Please.
Oh, do you want to continue going up?
No. I was just trying to do the human experiential way. That was it.
Oh, that was it.
It ends on 35.
Okay, gotcha.
There was I was listening to this one of the raw talks, and it was the 64 steps one. For 35, he said all's well that ends well, and for 36, it's all's well that ends.
Oh.
Can you elaborate on that?
If
I
you can,
have 36, so I'm
it's just if you can get out of it, you're okay. 36 has so many crises. It's just
Tell me about
please
it.
let the crisis end. That's what I get out of it.
The relief of the crisis being over, no matter what it is.
Yeah,
The ending
it
is.
doesn't matter
Put
what's
me in
going
like
on.
a padded room in a
All's
straight
well
jacket
that
if
ends.
something happened.
Damn, there's
Been
so
living
many
that
of
shit
these
lately.
go-aheads.
I'm getting hurt.
Damn it. It's never gonna end though.
Yeah. Well, so, we've said experience so many times. So this circuit is about that. And then doing so to share the feelings, the emotions, the reflections for the benefit of the collective. So these are the kind of people that are going to want to, tell their story to the person next to them at the bar and like exchange like the emotions and have someone else feel that with them. The theme of the sensing circuit is change through crisis. It is not about success or failure, but discovery. The revelations in this circuit only come at the end of the experience upon reflection. So really having to go through. I mean, as someone who has gate 36, I can relate to that a lot, is like not knowing until everything is over. And being able to look back and be like, oh,
Well,
that's what was going
and
on.
you have the 4253, which is all about those life cycles where it's not until the cycle's over that you realize that was a phase. You go, wow, that was a really dark phase, or wow, that was a really happy phase, or that was a
Absolutely.
What line is your 36?
4.
Same. That's that espionage. That's
Yeah.
double agent shit.
Cool.
personality sense.
Really? Oh my gosh.
4-6.
Yes.
And so, logical was the future. This is all about the past, the reflecting back on the experience. There's no purpose but the experience itself, which is an interesting thing to think about. I liked what this had to say, is like having a good sense of humor and perspective, because since it is about the experience, it's not about achieving goals or accumulating knowledge or getting a bunch of data on something. It's simply about feeling it, seeing it, how it plays out, and you might have to just look back and laugh at yourself. Like, oh, there's that thing.
That was the phase when I had that haircut.
I actually
I
love telling stories about like crazy experiences I've had. Like really unique, one of a kind experiences. It's exciting to me. Yeah. So if a situation turns out differently than expected, it's never a failure. It's just a discovery. Yeah. That is all I wrote for my notes. So
Do you want your book?
I need the book back.
Did you do tribal? Did you do all tribal?
I didn't write any notes for it. I'll just have to read it.
Oh, you don't have to read it. We can just talk about it. Or you could just read it.
Yeah, I just wanted to use it to direct, to have consistency with how I've been doing it. Well, I mean, I before switching to tribal, is there any questions or thoughts or experiences about the sensing circuit? I mean,
I guess just on my own, since I don't have any collective, it would be interesting to see like where those gates would be completed to a channel to see, because then I would be experiencing something that I don't
totally.
experience on my own normally.
It'd be
like-
cool to see who. There's a
Yeah.
few. If you like researching, which I know you do, which is so great. I love to see 2-4s. You're like a 2-4 is a natural at researching.
Yeah.
I've seen
That's
your like.
what you're supposed to
No,
do.
I've seen your like copious notes.
Yeah.
But here's a couple of fun ones. So one is, yeah, definitely look at the people that you have the electromagnetics with that are experiential, and kind of think about particularly the electro, not the compromise. Because I've done relationship analyses where one person has the whole channel, like my channel, 4629, which is all about going on adventure. The other person has half the channel. Well, you know what that's like? If you're in a relationship with me and you have half the channel, it means you don't get to go on my adventures, or you go on them in my terms. But then you'll have another friend who completes the channel for you, and then when you and that special friend are around, you two have your own amazing adventures together. So there's something so special and magical about an electromagnetic. That's when one person, like you have 51, I have 25. We have an electromagnetic.
So it's not necessarily
That's
a bad thing.
Electromagnetics are never bad. I mean, I think that the not self is drawn to them and can confuse it for attraction because it's sparks.
Yeah.
So you meet 35s and you go, oh, the sparks are flying, oh boy. But don't let yourself make decisions until you get the emotional clarity. It puts a new requirement with that person. When you're around them, even though you might not normally be emotionally, you're not normally emotionally defined, right? Or are you?
No, I am emotionally.
Oh, through
59.6.
Right.
59.6.
That's right. 59.6, the tribal. That's right. So you are anyway. But I guess it's not. But if you weren't, it would be a new requirement because you're already waiting for clarity. But it's gonna like add the pressure, when you have an electro with somebody and it's an experiential thing, and it's gonna say this. I mean, I think the experiential is the most FOMO. It says, hey, it's just an experience. Don't miss out. Don't miss out on the experience. And it's really hard to wait. Me and Mike, you really helped me kind of clarify it. We're talking about 4130 as taking baby steps in a relationship. That if you have 4130, or if that you have that electro with somebody, or they have it, if that energy's there, or even if it's activated in a transit, you just, if you hold hands that day, then maybe that's it, and the next day if you kiss on the cheek, maybe that's, or kiss, but that's it. You don't rush into some sexuality. There's an extreme pressure in the chemistry that's pressuring you through your chemistry to rush. And really, I think that everyone benefits when you don't. And that's what waiting for clarity is also, is waiting. Of course, you're not going to wait for it to be zero. It's not going to go to, you're not going to like lose all excitement or passion. You don't have to be afraid of that. But at the same time, you will get more clarity, and you might not do something that you would have done 2 days ago. And you might go, wow, I'm so glad I didn't do that, because of baby steps. It's so important.
I can connect the baby steps to the fates thing.
Oh.
Because with the 4130 in that relationship to fates, having a direct line to the fates means that it's a lifetime of learning how to dialogue with them sensibly. So if you rush into something, then fate is responding to you before it's even realized. You can go too far in before you realize what's happening. Whereas baby step, it's like
you're testing fate. You're testing what fate happens when you.
The fantasy desire meets circumstance, and the circumstance is always in some way riffing on what that desire is. And it's figuring out what that riff is, because sometimes it's a contradiction, or sometimes it's a twist, or whatever. And when you just have a little sample of it, then you see what the sample response is.
Well, because isn't it like in the old Greek, one of the old Greek myths or something, like the fates, it's like a woven carpet with like, that can go all these different ways, so you can kind of like, the fates, there's lots of different ways the fates could go. So if you're jumping in, you're diving down a line the fates may not have actually wanted you to go. So that they kind of like intertwine and weave through each other.
Cool.
But
yeah, that's the same kind of thing though. Just like seeing a little bit. I mean, obviously there are going to be times where you just have to go for it, and there's a time where that 4130 is going to say, I have enough clarity. I'm just gonna go off on my journey, and that's and then they will meet their chapel perilous, and they have to meet the chapel perilous. But yeah, I think the waiting and the testing and the little kind of baby steps approach is just such an important thing for the human experiential way, because people get, it's like, that's such a great reminder you had of, it's not about purpose. Purpose isn't there. Purpose isn't 2838. You find Gandhi, you find Martin Luther King Jr. They weren't these huge experiential people. They were fighting for like human rights and civil rights, and they were fighting for things that brought them purpose. They weren't trying to get the experience. The experience is ultimately about just having had the experience. Humans, that is part of what it is to be alive. It's the kind of roller coaster perspective of what a human life is. Life's just a ride. Now, of course, life's way more than that. And people who say life's just a ride, that might be true for them. They might be purely experiential. It might just be a ride for them. But for somebody else, life is a struggle, or life is, life is something else. But there is this built-in ability for humans to just want new experience, period. And it's really easy to get energy for that. I swear, if you say, I'm going to go up to Colorado and go camp, or, people, I want to come, it's just as soon as you say it, people immediately start to want to do it. And it's the people that actually have the experiential circuitry that have the consistent energy to do it. So for instance, I have 2946, so if I'm sacredly responding to stuff, I can bring people with me on all sorts of adventures. Where you said you don't have the collective circuitry, that doesn't mean you can't come on an adventure with me. It just means on your own, when you're trying to do it on your own, trying to get yourself to do it, trying to make yourself do it, trying to get off the ground to do it, it's just, it's not gonna work as well as if you have somebody else you have an electromagnetic with, or you have
she also has tribal. She has the ego circuit, 4037. So would that be influential, since it's like a community channel?
Oh, that's interesting. Wanting to be a part of something bigger than you. Yeah. Yeah. So so the tribe. Like we've talked a little about tribal keynotes.
It almost was like a link to a collective. It would sound
Yeah.
like, right?
It's getting kind of late. Does anybody need breaks for a second, or should we
I'll
just
still
finish
go.
up?
I have to go in a little bit, but
Should we just
Yeah,
finish
it
up
might
on
take
us.
tribal?
Good
I mean,
time.
should we just
We'll
maybe the
probably
last
have this tonight.
5 minutes on
Well,
tribal and just call
Since
it?
I don't have notes on tribal, Jonah, do you just want to riff?
Well, we can just talk about it. You can talk about it too. I mean, I think we could start with the keynotes.
Basic overview of tribe.
Okay.
Go.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw away these goat heads.
Um,
I've just, by the way, I found about 20 goat heads
Thank
that
God. Thank you.
I'm putting in the trash.
So there's two circuits, the ego circuit, so all of the channels that are branching out from the ego, and then corresponding ones down here. And then the defense circuit is just two channels over here, the 59.6 and the 50.27. So Amber is the only one who has part of the defense circuit, which is these two. Ego circuit, everyone here but Jonah and Trevor has a channel in the ego circuit, which is representing the tribe and its laws. It is the bedrock of human society, being the foundation upon which our way of life is structured and maintained. It's the circuit of the mundane plane and material world. The keynoting is the role of the tribe is twofold: to transform individual ambition into successful teamwork that ensures continued protection and control, and to build balanced relationships that support and nurture each other's place in the community. So yeah, all about the efforts to just keep the community thriving. And the transforming individual ambition is the 54.32, into successful teamwork 44.26, ensuring protection and control, which is the 21.45, which we have two people that have that here, Christy and Sandy, and to build balanced relationships 19.49, that support and nurtures each other's place in the community, which is 40.37. It's not about direction. It's not connected to the G Center. Neither is it about mental nor philosophical. It's not connected to the ajna or head. It's focused exclusively on maintaining the well-being and growth of the community. Coming together in the tribe involves individual sacrifice.
Yeah, it's like loyalty at any cost, or like no matter what, and you're all loyal to each other. Like it's the most anti-snitch. Like, you know how people hate, you know, and all the culture of, you know, snitches get stitches, all that. That's completely tribal. It's all about you just stay loyal to your tribe no matter what. And if you do that, they will support you, and you support them, and you just go down with the ship. I mean, it's really the foundation of, or you all succeed together. It's the foundation of the communalist, who really just says there is power in numbers, and the 3740 is a big bedrock of that. That's the part seeking a whole.
Yeah.
You know, we have a friend
You
who,
scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
and yeah, what bargain they're willing to make. And I have a friend who's a 3740, really wants to go into filmmaking, and I think it's because the idea of being part of a film crew is like one big family. It's like you're part of this thing that's bigger than you. You're all
That's
loyal to
literally
each other.
why I live in Santa Fe, is because I wanted to like fix some problem that was bigger than me. So
There you go. Yeah, be a part of something bigger than you, and that's the part of it.
Trump
and
was
it's-
elected. I'm gonna work for environmental. So
There you go. There you go.
that's
yeah.
literally why I came.
Yeah, and being a part of, you know, something you can have loyalty to. But I mean, it's really, the tribal is so, because there is also like 2838. There's purpose, and there's all sorts of other, you know, that's more, you know, individual. Like getting the, like, it's almost like the team you're working on is the tribal thing you're a part of. The people that you're working with, that's the real tribal aspect of it. The purpose you're getting, any purpose out of that is really going to mostly be individual. It's out of your own personal sense of, am I making a difference? Is this making a difference? So, but the tribal support keynote, you know, it's a necessity. If you have tribal channels, it is necessary for you. Just like if you have individual, if you're empowering someone and they're disempowering you, that's not going to work. Empowerment's a two-way street, and empowering means, you know, respect for each other as autonomous individuals. If you have individual circuitry, it's so important. People just understand that. Well, tribal, Support's a
Supporting.
two-way street. It is absolutely a two-way street. And if you're in a tribal, like, here's the thing: the second somebody has a tribal channel, it adds a new requirement. So I don't have any tribal channels. Jenny does. This adds a requirement that as soon as you have that, you're going to have some sort of support in your material success, that 4426. You're going to be supportive of others in their material success.
What does that mean?
You're going to expect...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. Well, I'm just saying, if you have tribal, it adds that requirement. Like, you don't have tribal.
Yeah.
So you and I don't put that requirement on each other. You know, we're not like, I'm not expecting that support, but for any sort of friendship, for somebody who's tribal, they're going to support each other. If they're going through a really rough time, they're going to expect their true friends to be there for them. I'm not going to be calling you in my time of need. I don't have that relationship.
I like to, because the only thing you should expect out of other people is for them to let you down. It's like
Well, that is said as somebody who does not have tribal circuitry.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me, because like that's what
You don't have tribal circuitry. You're not. But your tribal friends will not let you down. That's what I'm saying.
I feel a fierce
saying they
loyalty
could,
with
they
like
could,
my
but I just don't
true
expect them
friends,
to.
you know.
That makes a lot of sense. A requirement.
Yeah, it's like
It's not
each
conditional.
channel
But then
you
it does
have.
bug
No,
me
it's
when
like-
it's not, and it doesn't seem like
Well,
it's like.
Oh, when
being
it starts
resist-
feeling unfair,
Yeah.
it really affects
Yeah.
me to my core.
Oh, and I've gotten really annoyed about lack of fairness too. It's not saying that people won't. I mean, I had a great example of a couple with being, as I've talked about before, of having the bargain, the tribal bargain, and the person who does not have the tribal channel saying, I don't like this bargain, it's not fair, and me just basically saying, well, look, it's mechanical, you don't really determine what's fair. Like, it's a mechanical process. Like, this person actually has a continual process that continually updates what's fair in real time as a living, breathing process. You have a thought of what you imagine fairness is. Like, you're never going to win. Like, you're going to either have to take or leave the bargain from the person who actually has the tribal circuitry.
sounds like a fun
Because they're the ones who have
relationship.
a sense of what's fair, you know?
The
Just
bargain
like...
can change throughout time though too.
Well,
can.
that's what I'm saying. It does change. It absolutely changes, and that's why the people who don't have that, you know, have to learn. I think we always say that when you don't have circuitry,
Because
when you
it's
don't
connected
have
to
channels,
the ego, which is
You learn-
valuing.
yeah, and you really go to school in those places. So, for instance, Ra said that he had the least of the collective, so that's where he most went to school. So when he wrote the White Book, as it's been nicknamed, from the Book of Letters, as he calls it, which is a great name for a book, by the way. It's not the Book of Letters. He called his book From the Book of Letters, which is such a great... It's like the Book of Letters is some other, like,
It's some
mysterious
other
stuff.
thing,
And he's
yeah.
just, like, drawn from the Book of Letters. I love it. I love it. It's so bizarre. But in any case, when he wrote that, that's when he did most of his poetic keynoting and very poetic stuff. I noticed you've had some very poetic keynoting. I thought you wrote it yourself. I mean, but now I'm realizing it's the Rudd. It's Rudd's poetic keynoting. He's a very collective person.
Right.
But basically, Rod didn't have that. You know, he didn't have collective circuitry. He had the least amount of collective activation at all. And so he really said that's where he was going to school, was learning the poetry of it all. You know, of learning that side of it. So, you know, if you don't have, it's like what you don't have is really what you're learning. I don't have tribal, so I learn what it means. I don't have a defined ego, so I learn what relationships really have value, which ones don't. I learn where I've been overvaluing and undervaluing things. I learn where I've been, you know, supporting and not getting support back, or when I haven't been supportive, and I learn what support really means, and how, you know, and all those elements of it. And I guess what it really means is when you're with somebody, in a relationship with somebody who has a channel, you really get to experience that channel with them, and it is correct for you in that relationship to meet the requirements of those channels. So anybody who's in a relationship with me, we have to go on adventures. I have 2946. It's experiential. If we do not have an experiential adventure, it's not going to be good. I also have 952. You know, I have to have a certain level of consistency, and these are like requirements for relationship, you know. But, you know, I don't need a lot of support. I don't put the requirement up or whatever. This is my number. Here's my present to everybody. That's why I'm joking. I was making a joke like it's one of those, you know, video dating things. But anyway, yeah. Do you want to say anything more about? Do you have more last?
Well, we kind of mentioned this a little earlier, but
Should wrap up,
talking about how the sense of touch and smell is really important. Needing to shake hands and hug. So like tribal people, when they're going through things, a hug is so impactful. Just that physical touch. And then needing to meet you up close so they can smell you to see if you belong to their tribe.
He belongs to the tribe.
Metaphorically speaking, they don't trust anything unless they can smell it.
Huh.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
be a robot.
Exactly. Okay, so the
There you
last
go.
one, the defense circuit, and so this is part of the tribal, but it has it's a minor circuit of sexuality, and it has a huge impact on all other circuitry. The defense circuit pulls people into the heart of the community. These people have the power to bring even the most stringent individuals into the community. I was thinking, I feel like Rachel has that gate. I mean, that channel. I could see her doing that at the conference, like checking up on everyone. And
Yeah, the defense circuit is only 2 channels, and they're like basically mothering, fathering, right? It's kind of how you can look at it.
Yep.
Child raising versus breaking down the other's resistance to intimacy.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Right. The role of the defense circuit is to
Useful.
establish values that support the genetic continuity of the tribe or family and offer structure and care in order for the offspring to mature into adulthood, therefore fostering children who will in turn produce more children. The reproduction ensures that our species will continue. Yeah, so the mothering and fathering aspect is super important for the reproduction. Yes. Jonah?
That's cool.
No, I think we should wrap up. I think we're great.
Anything
I
else
think
to say
it's-
about it, though?
I mean, yeah, the
Grasp?
defense circuit, for people who have that, it's kind of almost as, like, you have part of it, Amber, right? And
Yeah.
it's definitely kind of pretty much as strong as the format channels in terms of, like, the aura strength. Like, people who have that 50-27, they're just always like, put on your coat, what are you doing? Like, they're like the ones, people just trust them
caring.
to just always care about making sure everybody's fed, making sure everybody gets enough, making sure everybody's warm, making sure everybody has everything they need, making sure nobody puts the ring on the table, making sure, I mean, whatever. Like, if there's an Airbnb situation and you have like a 50-27 there, they're just going to make sure they don't mess it up. On the other side is the aura cutter, as it's called, that 59-6. That is going to always be there to really, break down people's defenses. I mean, I have a friend who has it, he even does it on Facebook. It's amazing. And I know how he talks in real life, so I can kind of do an impression of my buddy Kevin. His friend posted all this political stuff on there, and then he just goes, hey, Ted, are you still carving those plates? How's Linda doing? Let's hang out. And then Ted goes, hey, blah, blah, blah. And then it's fine, you know what I mean? It's like he just knows how to de-escalate situations so well. And when you think about what that does at a tribal level, it's like the de-escalators and the people who really care. And they're really just making sure all the kids are taken care of, making sure everybody has what they need, making sure. I mean, it is the defense of the human species. It's through tribal support. So. Well, thanks
All right,
everyone for coming. Let's hear for
thanks.
Jenny.
Yeah.
Jenny did such a good one today.
Maybe there's all of us.
You did such a great notes, great everything. Thanks everybody at home for watching. Thank you all.
Whew, that was
Yeah, it's been,
Quick question, gate 4. What is gate 4?
Gate 4 is